I spoke to Tim Keary. He's a tech writer based in London. I asked him about the 996 debate and if it's a matter of survival for some of these companies.
In fairness, it is. I know 996 has come under a lot of fire for being unfair towards workers, but the problem is it has become a competitive differentiator amongst the tech elite. Our companies that put in hours around the clock are going to outperform those that don't. So it's really become a kind of race in terms of workforces. I mean, if you're not putting in the hours, then the chances are a competitor is. So it really become a point of contention for these companies.
In fact, some startups aren't 996. They say they're 997 because it is so fiercely competitive.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's important to draw a distinction between, there's a lot of differences between an entrepreneur perhaps pulling 100-hour weeks, but for full-time employees, the situation is a little different because you're under pressure for managers and that kind of thing. One of the key complaints about 996 is that Chinese workers feel that they'll be let go if they don't put in these extra hours. It's become a standard expectation. There's a big difference between someone like Elon Musk putting in 120 hours a week at Tesla and somebody just being expected to do it in their kind of first entry-level tech job.
Yeah, so really, I guess the question comes down to work-life balance, and that's really what the debate is all about. Do you think it's being brought about by millennials who may want more from life than just pouring their passion into their work?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the growth of kind of flexible working and those kind of movements has kind of fed into this. I mean, at some point, I feel it comes on regulators to kind of set about the kind of balance between how much work is being done in that, because there's a big difference between being asked to work overtime and being expected to put in 100 hours of overtime a month. And I do think the expectation of companies is fair for some overtime, for a limited amount of overtime. But when it comes down to 72-hour weeks, I think millennials are wanting more, expecting, as you say, more of a work-life balance and trying to focus on life outside of work. Because if you're working 72 hours a week, it does become very difficult to fit in kind of family and other kind of relationships like that.
To that point, I interviewed Kai-Fu Lee in China a few months back, and of course he's talked about how he was addicted to 996, probably more 997, to such a degree that he was prepared to leave his wife while she was in labor to go give a presentation at Apple when he worked there. His daughter arrived in time, so he was there. He didn't have to choose, but he still made that meeting. But in a TED Talk, he famously said, "To this day, I am so sorry for letting my work ethic take precedence over love for my family." What about that sense of regret? Because these people at some point are going to look back on their life and say, wow, there were these moments and I missed them.
Totally. I mean, it's one of those things with it. I think in the short term, perhaps a period of working extra hours can pay dividends throughout your life. I mean, it's particularly if you're getting a business off the ground and those kind of things. But if you end up looking back in 5 years' time and thinking, where's that time with my kids gone? Where's that time with my family gone? And that kind of thing, I feel it does devolve very toxic very quickly. I mean, there's also another way to look at it. If you work this kind of schedule for like 10 years, it will have an effect on your kind of cardiovascular health, and it will have an effect on other health conditions like depression as well. So it really does depend on if it's worth it.